Well, good afternoon. I get a little bit sidetracked when I'm doing the bit of research that I do before I do my videos, and so I got carried away because I keep digging and digging and looking for more information. But today's was a word of mouth situation, and what came up for me first, why I was kind of laughing, was there was a game we used to play where you'd set up in a line of chairs, and then the first person would say something into the next person's um, they were supposed to repeat exactly what they had heard, and then they'd pass it to each person and pass it and pass it and pass it till the end, and then the end person would say what the first person said. It was like, no. It was always kinda so, eh, this was a big lesson on because this happened kind of a long time ago for me when I was doing genealogy and first getting into it. I think I had kind of this notion in my mind that if somebody told me the information, that was golden. And if you saw it on a tombstone, that was golden. If you saw it in a census report, and over time, after many years doing this, I know better than to, I thank the person very much, and then I begin to do the research. And on this particular video today, I wanted to cover one of the trips that I made back a while ago, several years ago. And I was told that this couple, um, they both died on the same day in 1870. And it said that they died near Muscadine. Now, Muscadine was a little bit intriguing to me because I lived in Texas for a while and there was muscadine grapes and they were delicious. They were wild, and you could go pick them up if. And a lot of people made wine out of them, but they kind of had a real dry taste to them. But so I thought maybe that's what they were named after, muscadine. But I kind of had to go out of my way from the destination of where this couple and their four kids lived, and I had noticed that a lot of times people for honeymoons and special occasions would I was going to say drive down to Muscadine to celebrate, but after I realized, I started trying to figure out what happened to this couple, and I actually did a little research on it to see, mode of transportation, what was it really back then, in 1870 in Iowa. And basically, they said you either walked, you rode a horse, or you took a boat in the river, in the Mississippi. Now, that was the largest river that was near to all this research I was doing, and so I was intrigued. I was really curious to see this town, Muscadine, and, so I arrive, and immediately what I notice is there's seashells. They're kind of a mussel shell all over the beach, covered the beach with, and the Mississippi there was big enough. I mean, the Mississippi is a very meandering, large river and fluctuates with flooding and etc. But the Indians used it mostly for they would do their dugouts, little canoes, and so they went by water, and they had done that for many years. Now, I guess I had thought maybe wagon trains, but evidently they didn't mention wagon trains back then. I guess maybe the wagon trains were if you were going a longer distance, and moving out west or moving all of your belongings, you would have like a um, covered wagon. So that kind of limited as far as, because immediately when I was doing research on a different family for a while, and there was several mothers were missing and on the same day. And so I was able to track them down because it was a car wreck. And so, and they left a bunch of kids behind. And so I kind of, in the back of my mind, I thought at first this couple, maybe they were in a car wreck. Maybe they were going down to celebrate some special anniversary or something like that. And they were in a car wreck. Well, there really wasn't cars. The train was being built, but the train had not gotten that far, so they didn't take a train. And I think the train would have been going east and west, and from where they lived, it would have been going south down to Muscadine. So I did a little research on Muscadine, and they actually could have been named. They changed the name of the little town many times, evidently. And there was a tribe of Indians back in the day, and it wasn't really Muscadine, but it started with an M and a U and an S, and so they had it named that for a while, and they changed it to some prominent Mr. Adventure Man or politician that came to visit Muscatine. It was interesting also, they had the largest number of um, Black people in Muscadine because they all escaped right before Civil War and managed to get up into the Mississippi River, and then they came over and settled, and they had very prominent families, and um, really, built a community. And I think there was something to do with the schools and the colleges, and so there was that. And then I looked, and all those shells, it had been, they call them pearl shells, and they made them into buttons. And I walked down kind of the main street and was looking in the windows. There was this one window that was full of buttons, and it was those old white buttons that they used. And so they came out of those shells. There's still somebody having the business. I guess it was open, but it was just this several inches deep. The whole when you went in was these buttons. Well, I didn't have any need for buttons, but it was fascinating to me. And then I came up on the courthouse, and I thought, well, maybe the courthouse would be a good place to go and see what records I could find there. So very, very beautiful. There, most of the time when I'm traveling, the Capitol buildings and the courthouses are very, very nice buildings. And this was exceptionally nice, and it was very quiet, and kind of, it had been a hot day out, and so it was kind of cool there. And I walked into the office, and I approached the kind of the counter space, and somebody came. And so I told them who I was and what I was looking for, and was there any old records? And the lady said, oh yes, there's old records here, come with me. And so I followed her, and we went through a room, and then we went to another room, and then next thing you know, we're going downstairs, and they're not like ladders, they're like stairs with rungs on them. And so you have to go down backwards. And then down in this whole basement area was boxes and bookcases and drawer spaces and everything you could think of. And there was nothing in any orderly fashion as far as, and I went through a lot looking just to see if I could put two and two together and figure out, if there was some connection in that arena. Maybe like I thought even of the newspapers. And later when I got home, I did get on newspapers in that's available online, and I tried to find some accident that was in that range of time. And but as it ended up, I just kind of meandered out of there and walked a little bit down the beach. It reminded me, felt like almost like the ocean in a way, or lakes. Uh, what's the lake by anyway? When you're in Chicago, there's that big lake, and there's waves, and so you do feel a little bit like you're at the ocean. And but it had a real festive feel to it. And so I got a bite to eat, and I sat down next to the water and had a nice lunch. And then I took up driving back up north. And of course, I just took the road up there, and I don't know what they would, I would imagine, I don't know if they would have taken the boat. I don't know, or they, it was very, very intriguing to me how these people got that far away from home and didn't have their kids with them. So then I headed up north, and this is also the family that I've mentioned before, um, of having four children, and then 1870 census. They're really scattered around, and the youngest, Samuel, was like 1 years old at the time and was a ward of the court and placed in a family's home, and one was living with the mother's family, which was the Wilsons. And then there was another one, I think, in a family. And then Mary, I talked about Mary earlier. She was the one that just did the housekeeping. But I, at that point, to this point, right today, which I got diverted again, and I find this information, and I get so wondering, and I get these ideas in my brain that I just need to go a little bit deeper or a little bit, further into it. And as it ended up, these 4 children, as they grew up, eventually the 3 boys, um, really took care of themselves, and Mary got married and moved away. And she thought that Frank, one of the brothers, um, that again, it was word of mouth, and some of it was handwritten down, but it was still word of mouth passed on. And her great grandmother had said that he never married. Well, I found 2 of the boys in Canada, and actually, the third one was Jesse, which I've shared before, and then he came back down into Idaho. But there was the 2 of them in Ontario. So I had sent um, like an email to, I found the name of a lady who was somewhat um, knowledgeable about the priors that were up there. And so I sent her a text and gave her the information I had, and she said she wrote back, but um, and gave me some other suggestions, but it ended up that um, the boys had made their lives up there, and both of them had passed up in Canada, in Ontario. So I got a little excited about it again today, which I always get excited. And then the next thing you know, an hour's gone or another hour's gone, just playing. I don't know. I mean, this is just it's a large hobby, totally interesting if you're want to find mysteries, and some of the mysteries, are very small. This particular mystery has been, you know, a bother to me, because I keep thinking I can solve it, and then I figure out, oh, maybe I can solve it. And at the end of the today, with everything I did, I thought I had solved it, but I'm going to save that to the end. The other thing that was really interesting, when I was studying the map, um, of Iowa, and I pinpoint, where all the different families go, and then I try to figure out, well, how does one that's way, way off yonder, how did their daughter marry somebody in this other area? And now I'm, even thinking about it today, it's like, and how did they were farmers, how did they move from one farm halfway across the state to another? So yeah, I mean, I would like to talk to more people, that even if it was word of mouth, that I maybe could get some more hints about what's going on and what happened to this family. It's kind of, uh, it, I still don't know what happened to the mother. That kind of bothers me. And then there's these kids, and I am going to contact the people. I even made a note today, because one of them actually, he got married before he went to the United States, but I think his wife had 2 miscarriages, and so then after that, then he moved to Canada with the other brother, and then had another family, and died up there. Now it was interesting. There was some delayed uh, birth records, and it entailed one of the brothers coming down and testifying on this legal document that he was 5 years old when his brother was born, and he knew he was born here, here, and here, and he wasn't born in Canada. So I don't know for sure if what that was going to give him, because they were both up in years at that point. So maybe it was a pension. It looked like they were trying to prove where he was born. He didn't come back to the United States like Jesse, who had to give up his citizenship to go to Canada, and then had to do some legal work just to be able to get that reinstated and become a United States citizen again. Um, I also found that quite often it was very common, and I do see this when I'm doing genealogy a lot of times again, and I mentioned it probably before, but I will mention it more many times, I bet. But when you're doing census reports, there's family members, but then there's the mothers, and then there's the cousins, and then there's can be any. And so this family definitely did some of that type moving around and moving together, and um, you know, it's very interesting, it's very intriguing, and I have to say that, it was not a total, um, unsuccessful day because I got to reminisce about going to, Muscatine, which was interesting, gave me no information, but it was a beautiful sunny day on the Mississippi, and when I do it, I always look at it as an adventure, no matter, if I'm sitting in a library or if I'm out on the road, being able to visit places. I like to understand the geography and the history, and actually see how the people are living right now, because a lot of them are still farmers. And I know that the ones that were living in Ohio, it it was known that the soil was much richer in Iowa, and that kind of drove them out of Ohio into Iowa, and then they became farmers there. So this little note of information is especially for my brother Dan, because he and I, we do genealogy together a lot. And for a while, I never had anybody, like that. But it was great because got his DNA done, and my son has showed interest, and he got his DNA done. So I'm laughing because I'm going to embarrass myself totally. But there's a place in Ancestry where you can go and you can like look at the information that's out there, and then you add your information. And I don't use just Ancestry, but this they do have their pros. But what happened on when I found today was I have Samuel Pryor, uh, from ancestry.com, and it says he was born in 1828 in Newport, Washington, Ohio. And everything looked good. A lot of the information was coming from, many different sources. But when I got down to the point where I really wanted to know, Samuel Wilson was the baby, and then he grew up and he married this woman, and they had kids. And and there's a place on this form, and it says, so in the beginning it says age 0, birth. Then age 2, birth of brother Andrew Pryor. So what they do is they take everything you put into the system, and they just convert it so that you can see how old this person, and just glance at it and see how old these people are. And I find it interesting because I also like to read the death certificates and what they die of, and how, if they're long livers or not. Anyway, so I was reading this on page 2. I know my brother's going to call me as soon as he gets this video, because I found it says death of Sister Maria Pryor. She was 92 years old. Now, I remember telling you all that Virginia was the youngest of all those kids, 17 kids or something like that. And they all lived almost to be 100. But then right below it, it says death of daughter Mary. She was 114 years old. And it says death of son Jesse Williams Pryor. He was 117 years old. And death of son Samuel Wilson Pryor, and he was 118 years old. Now, I know that if you get what I'm conveying to you, you will see that something's wrong. So, I'm gonna have to start over. I'm gonna have to go back and check every single piece of the documentation and where I got it from. And that's the other part, because I would not, I would, this isn't something that I just take my paper and go and I enter it in on the computer. This is a kind of a probably like an algorithm or something like that Ancestry has built into the system. I enter I enter the dates that I have of when the person was born, when the person died. I don't usually, this other part I don't really pay attention to, but that was something I need to pay attention to. So anyway, it's been a fun Sunday, and I love spending time with you guys and giving me all their feedback. I did add a place where you can put a comment now. You can, I hope it works. I'll have one of my girlfriends who suggested it to me. I'll have her try it. But there should be a place on the video that you can write a comment, um, if you want to, send me any information. Also, speaking of algorithms, if you would, when you're after you get done reading, and I don't know if some of you know this or not, but there's a place where you can subscribe to my videos. Just pay anything. It's free. Again, it's off in the algorithm somewhere. And there's a place to subscribe, and that if you click on that, then you will, the next time I put out a a video, you'll receive a notice that I just released another one. And then the other one is if you liked the video, then that counts against something too. So there's a place to do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I prefer thumbs up. Just just seems like it's right, but at 118 years old, having an answer that's that old, I don't know. It's not. But anyway, I had a lot of fun. Now I'm going to put it away for a while because my eyes are going crisscross again. But oh, I also wanted to show you my necklace. I'm wearing Mars moonstones in this. These are the and chocolate moonstones. So the white ones are rainbow. So that's the little fixture there. And I make jewelry. I love collecting rocks, and I always, when I'm out about, I'm always like looking for rocks to collect. And when I went to Montana, it was really fun up there. I don't think I found any rocks that, there wasn't any mining really going on in the part of Iowa where I was at, but I always look into that too because it intrigues me, it interests me. So I look forward to releasing another one. I have started another one, but I will probably rest a while and maybe in a couple of days send out another one. Thank you. Goodbye.